Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Live Insta. We'd like to invite Simone to be here. I can see everyone. Simone, good evening.
Yay!
Hi.
It's always exciting. You're all at work.
Yeah. Always wondering whether this works or not.
Exactly. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining.
Yeah. Welcome, Simone. Back from Australia, back in the Netherlands. Welcome to you.
Yes. Hi from Berlin and France. Welcome, welcome. And Malaysia. Excellent. It's lovely to speak to Amukta. I'm excited to talk about all of our love of birth to three.
Yes. Simone, I thought at the outset, would you like to introduce yourself? And then maybe I will do that after that. Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Don't need an introduction, but basically to start this off.
I think we need an introduction. There's many people I haven't met yet, I'm sure. I'm so glad to see everyone from the UK and Portugal. My name's Simone Davies, and I'm an Australian, but I've been living in the Netherlands for the last 20 years. I am a Montessori educator and a Montessori parent, and I discovered Montessori in 2002. We were visiting a Montessori school, and I was interested to put my children into this school. And then they had a 0 to 3 play group. And I started attending with my son, who was then 18 months old, and I fell head over heels in love. And I started doing my training very soon after that. And in 2004, I did my AMI assistance to infancy training. And then life moved me to the Netherlands, where I ended up starting my own parent-child classes called Jacaranda Tree Montessori. And so really I've been 22 years in the Montessori classroom working with this beautiful age group. And I'm happy to share everything I've learned, and also just raising my own children. I guess that's almost like the biggest lesson, not only working with thousands of families over the years, but my children are now 25 and 23. Yeah.
Wow. So are you a grandmother as yet?
I'm not a grandmother yet.
Okay.
The audio from Amukta could be a bit louder if possible. Okay.
So I did my Montessori education with Mr. Houston. Very coincidentally, he was from the Netherlands, and he was in charge of the training courses in India. And I did that in the 70s. And after that, I worked in the, in Montessori environments. One in a village where I volunteered with a person who was actually trained with Dr. Montessori in Kodaikanal. So I he was my mentor. And then I worked at the J. Krishnamurti School in Chennai, which was just started at that time.
Yeah.
And from then on, I've been tied to Montessori through my heart and head and hands. And I've been part of setting up a school in Chennai called Abacus School. And wherever I go, I take Montessori with me and hope to, take it to children and teachers across.
Yes.
Somehow I feel that children do get a good environment, but and teachers are neglected. So I felt I need to focus on teachers so that they in turn take it to children. And so is there for that as a center for educators.
Beautiful. Well, I'm very happy to be connected with you. Someone said it's a bit hard to hear you. I hear Amukta quite clearly, so I think just maybe turn up the volume a little bit. When I first got on, I had to turn up the volume, so try that. Let's hope that works for people.
Yeah, I'll do that. Louder? Simone, shall we start with kind of laying out the foundation for that discussion, in a sense, looking at the needs of the birth to three age group. They're
Absolutely.
marvelous age group. I know, and I love that group because they don't allow too much interference from the adult. But if you if you lay
Absolutely.
out outlay of the needs of the child from birth
Yeah.
to school, then we can take questions which are there. Some have come in earlier, and some may be coming across now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think I'm so passionate about sharing the information that we have about Montessori for the birth to the 3-year-old child, because it's the foundation. You know, if you do a 3 to 6 training or a 6 to 12 training or a 12 to 18 training, you have to know where the child has been. And this is like when you get the opportunity to work with children at this age group, you're laying a foundation that you'll build on in every stage. If you miss it, if you're watching this and it's too late, then don't worry. You know, that's also fine and you are where you are. But if you get to start from in utero, when babies, you know, in the uterus, and they can feel your hand or they can hear you singing or playing music or any of that, they're already beginning these needs that, you know, Amukta mentioned. And the needs of children from birth to 3 are things like movement. You know, they need free movement. So you may not know there's a substance called myelin that wraps around your nerves. And if you don't have myelin on it, then you can't activate that part of the body. And when a baby's born, that part that's myelinized is around their heart and around their mouth, so that they can feed and they can breathe, and, you know, the blood can pump, so around the vital organs. And then as the more they move their hands and things like that, then the myelin can grow along. So the more movement you have, the more the myelin can move, and the more that they can get to refine their fine motor skills and their gross motor skills and all those kind of things. So movement builds myelin, myelin builds movement, you know, so they are both mutually exclusive. So movement's really important. They have a need for language. So you can see a baby watching our mouths as we talk. They're absorbing that. They start babbling, and they can babble in the sounds of every language in the world until around the age of 7 months, 8 months. So we want to give them the languages in our homes and in our culture in this time. Rich language, beautiful language, intentional language. And then, you know, it's not long before they're saying some sounds and some clear words and then sentences. And so the first 3 years is just this beautiful opportunity for language. They have a very strong sense of order, and they have a need for order. So the prepared environment, which we love in Montessori, is super important at this age because they need predictability. So a baby who has just been born comes out of the environment, and they have points of reference in a Montessori environment, home environment, where they know where they're going to be fed. They learn, this is where I'm going to sleep. This is where I'm going to be changed. And that gives them security in the daily routines. When everything else is uncertain, these points of reference and the way we set up our homes to be predictable can be really, really important. And then as they get older, toddlers also have a very strong sense of order. So you can have a simple place where you hang your shoes, where you hang your coat or put your shoes by the front door. And I think it's great because toddlers usually go and get our shoes from the living room and put them back in their right spot. You know, they have such a strong sense of order at this age. And it's great to understand that because, for example, there's a beautiful story that Dr. Montessori tells about a mother and child walking down the street, and the mother takes her coat off and the child gets very upset, seemingly for no reason. But when she put the coat back on, the child then calms again. It's like we left the house and they expected that the coat was going to stay on, and then the coat came off and that made them upset. It doesn't mean we have to keep our coat on, but it means that we can understand what the needs of our child are, and then we can reassure them and explain those kind of things. And sensorial exploration is so important for this age group. They're in the absorbent mind, and the first 6 years, they're sensorial explorers. And so we need to have opportunities for them to touch and for them to taste and smell and to hear and to see. And everyone wants to make our children grow up so fast and give them a screen, but this actually doesn't enrich their development at all. It's really placing them with opportunities to explore, for them to handle real concrete materials. And that's why when you walk into a Montessori environment and it's beautifully prepared and you feel like a guest, that someone's prepared something that's just curated just for you, and they want to touch and explore, move their body, understand things, and everything starts coming together. And so I guess the last need of this child that I want to touch on in this very short life, we'll be going deeper into this if for people who want to, if they want to follow our 03 deep, our course. But it's time. They need time. They need time to explore. They need time on a floor mat for them to move their bodies. Yes, it's lovely to carry our babies, but they need that free movement as well. They need time for us to stop and listen to the sounds that they're making. And if they say "Gah," we might say "Gah" back. And, we're not doing "Goo ga ga ga," but we're really listening and having a little conversation. If you have a 3-week-old baby and you hold them in your hands with just out in front of you like this, and your arms distant so they can see you, right? And you poke out your tongue and just wait. You can see their little mouth trying to do the same. And then they do, and then you poke your tongue back out again. And then they try. And you're having a conversation. You're teaching them that, when they want to express themselves, you're going to be there to listen and to help them understand and guide them in this world. So, yeah, hopefully that's just enough to drop a little seed of these needs. And there's human tendencies, there's so many needs, but whenever we don't understand the child, we can think, what are their needs and what needs not being met right now?
And those so many conquests they need to make within these 3 years, in a sense.
Yes.
Yeah. So language, movement, feeding themselves a little bit.
Yeah, feeding themselves. Exactly. When they're born, we're providing food for them. And then by the end of 3 years, they're able to take a spoon, to open the fridge, to pour a glass of whatever they want to drink. So we need to set up the environment and have time, and these practical life skills come with all of that as well. There's also toileting as well. When they're born, they don't have control over that process, and over time with our guidance they're able to toilet independently in the first 3 years as well.
Yeah. We have some questions from yesterday, so maybe I can ask them for you
Of
and
course.
for the group here, the community here. So one of the questions is that I can read it out to you: how to make others gently aware of not disturbing a baby's concentration.
Yeah,
This is from a mother and also a Montessori student, Rajesh.
Beautiful. So once you hear about the Montessori approach and that we let a child work, we use the word work because they're working on constructing themselves. When they're working, then they need concentration. They need time not to be interrupted. And then you start to notice how many people interrupt them. You have visitors over and they want to pick up the baby. You have the noise around that, it's okay to have background noise and things, but sometimes there's a lot of people wanting to take attention away from what the baby's focused on. And so, yes, I love this. Like, how can you gently guide someone as well? So that's working with other people. And it's understanding what their need is. Their need is for them to connect with the baby or the young child or whoever's working. And your need is to preserve this concentration. So I think it's acknowledging in advance, if you can, to give people like a heads up, like, oh, when you come to visit us at home, for example, or when you come to the school and you see these children working, these are some guidelines, but you can say it in a very beautiful way, like, we're just learning about this Montessori approach and we're really finding that they can concentrate for so long. We've got this beautiful mobile and I timed it and it was 7 minutes and they were just touching their hands and looking at the mobile, and then I noticed that they weren't really interested in that one anymore. I changed it and then they could concentrate on the next one. So it's kind of like my friend Gabriel Salameo, he's from Brazil, and he talked about taking your grandparents, for example, if they're the ones who are interfering, to the playground with you when you go out and you get an ice cream and you just sit on the side to watch your child and you commentate on all the joy and all the things that are possible that your child is doing. Like, oh, look how they climbed up all by themselves and they were really careful with their feet coming down, and you're commentating and translating so that they start to see how capable the child is, and that they don't need our interference. But Montessori doesn't also mean that we just are laissez-faire, we let them do whatever we want. We're saying, I'm available, I'm here, I'm kind of like a bodyguard. You don't notice a bodyguard, but if you need to, I will go very quickly to have safe hands, to keep the child safe. But sometimes if it's a small amount that they might fall, you might also say, well, this is how they also learn to understand how big their body is, their body schema. So it's okay if they fall down one step, so you can also judge the safety that way. So I think one would be noticing, maybe giving some guidelines in advance, and you can also translate for the baby. So for example, if they go and they try to interrupt the baby by picking them up, you could say, oh, it looks like the baby's concentrating right now, but they'll be available soon. Or let's give them 15 minutes to explore, and then that would be a great time for you to cuddle them, and you can help me to change their diaper and get them ready for bed, so that you meet their need to connect with the baby and your need to preserve their concentration. What do you think? Would you have anything else to add?
I think to help them see that, I thought even a film like The Miracle of Life sometimes,
Oh,
if
yeah.
you have a long relationship with the family visiting, you can watch it together. I feel that also helps people to realize how the child is an entity unto itself, in a sense.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think that's such a big shift, because in traditional rearing of children, it's like the adult is telling the child what to do and that's how they're going to grow. And Montessori is like, oh, this baby has been entrusted to us and we're going to let them reveal themselves to us. And we need to prepare a beautiful, engaging environment because that supports their development. But for the rest, we're going to get out of the way and let the child become themselves. Yeah, I love how they're the sovereign being, right?
Yes. Yeah. Another question we got yesterday was from Geetanjali. She says, does a three-year-old like to defy authority? How to handle such a child with sensitivity and respect? We have only 1 hour with this child, and other children are present. Sometimes the child gets destructive or aggressive.
Okay. Let me deal with the second part first, which is when they're destructive and aggressive. So in that moment, we need to keep everybody safe. So we can step in and kindly say, stop that actual behavior. Like, I can't let you hurt that child. I can't let you break that. And you step in for safety. And you might even put your body between two children, for example, if they're hurting another child, because it's important that everyone feels safe in your space. So that's clear. So just kind and clearly, it's a kind limit that we're going to set. And then we need to let that child calm down, because usually when they become aggressive or destructive, their nervous system is dysregulated. Right? And so there's no point rationalizing. It's not okay to hurt everybody else, to give them a long lecture or anything. They're not going to be able to hear you until they're really calm again. So then I would prioritize having someone to help the child calm down, to keep them safe. And then once you kind of see this big, release, then you'll find that they're able to perhaps make amends to the other child or to the thing that got broken. Like, I can see that you're really upset and it's important that we, put everything back on the shelf now. So for example, I had a child who threw a plant on the floor, and it wasn't the first thing that I was going to fix is to clean up the plant. But once the child had calmed down, we got the dustpan and we swept it up and we put it back so that they learn to take responsibility for their actions. That's what I love about Montessori. And sometimes we skip this step, but people think, oh, the kids are allowed to do whatever they want. But no, when they actually have to make it up to another child or to repair, or even if they've hit us, they make a repair, they might get a cool cloth for us. We don't force them to say sorry, but we model the behavior of making a repair for the children who are under 3 years old. And then you can translate for them, like, were you trying to this? Like, there's usually the behavior is telling you something. They're having one of their needs is not being met. They weren't heard. They need to move. They were feeling trapped in a corner, perhaps. So observation's a big part of this. Like, what was going on for this child? Why did they become aggressive? is their nervous system like on edge? Is it already heightened? There may be neurodivergence and things like that that can be at stake. So we need to make sure that we're meeting the needs of the children, and we translate as well. And then you can look at how can I have this child's needs met in a way that's acceptable to everybody in the environment. So for example, if they're wanting to climb on tables, which is unsafe, we could say, oh, it looks like you want to climb. And instead of just saying keep the feet on the floor, which is what we want them to do, we actually probably need to find another way that they can climb. So, in our classroom, we actually had some climbing frames and some climbing wall in the classroom, but maybe there's opportunities outside or wherever you have it set up in your home. Or in your school environment, so that they can have this need to climb. A child who's aggressive and destructive often has a need to get out a lot of energy from their arms. So is there something that they can bang on? Is there some instruments that they can play that are lots of banging and things like that? Or we had like some little bean bags that they could throw against the wall or into a hoop. So lots of ways to get their body out. And then the very first part was like, can a 3-year-old defy authority, which I think is a really interesting thing. We don't tend to actually see them trying to defy us. Usually but everyone has a need to be seen, heard, understood. And so if that child is starting to not feel seen, understood, that they're the troublemaker, that they're starting to feel like they're at fault, then you might see them trying to play out to get attention in the wrong kind of ways. So it's almost like we need to do the opposite of what we expect. Instead of correcting this child, it's really loving them, having a lot of compassion for them, that they would do better if they could do better, and loving on that child to see that they're not trying to make it a hard time for anybody, but they're having a hard time themselves. And when you come with love, you see that child relax and feel safe in your environment, and often the behaviors tend to improve as well.
On the other hand, we also wait for the child to listen to themselves and maybe refuse, say no to the adult in the environment. Whether it's a parent or a teacher or a guide, and coming from a genuine reason, not to really defy, but to say, no, I don't want to do this. And sometimes parents or adults see that as a defiance.
Yes, exactly. They need to say no as part of their development. Exactly. Yeah, that can also be that. Mm-hmm. They need to feel like they have autonomy over their thing. One of my favorite phrases is you can be in charge of, and those children, give them a role in your environment, make them feel like they belong. Like, are they really good at setting the table? Like, there's no time for that. We need to go and set the table. We're needed to, take part in our community. So that can also be a really important part.
Yes. I've been to your center, and it's a lovely environment for children of this age group from birth to 3, along with parents. And I feel that is very special that you invite parents also into your environments. And could you talk a little about that? Otherwise, very often the toddler program becomes very schoolish. Can we move away from that and make it an environment that suits them?
Absolutely. So I didn't come up with this concept of a parent-child class. When I was living in Australia, I attended this parent-child group, and it changed the way I parent, because I could see how important a prepared environment was. I could see how important the prepared adult was. And also understanding the child, you were seeing through new eyes. I learned observation in this environment. So then when I moved to the Netherlands and there wasn't a parent-child class, I'm like, I'm going to have to start my own. And so when I first started, I was working 80% with the children and 20% with the parents. So 80% giving the children lessons on, we had a beautiful language area, music area, there's a creative area with art and craft materials, there's fine motor skills, gross motor skills, and then this practical life where we make snacks together and wash hands, flower arranging and things like that. So we had this beautiful space, and I would give lessons, and then I'd answer parents' questions. And then over time, after 17 years together, it came more like that 80% of my time was supporting the parents, because when you get out of their way, they know what to do, and also you have a mixed age group where the older children who have already been in the class for a while, they're learning from them. So someone's doing a flower arranging activity, and then the younger one comes up and wants to try. So you can just step in and just give them the little bit of help that they need. You don't have to give the full presentation, because that's being modeled by these 3-year-olds who they adore and look up to. And so, yeah, it was such rewarding work to work with the families because you see the parents developing alongside the children. And I loved it when grandparents would come or a nanny as well, because then the whole family is on the same page. That can be really supportive. And if, for example, a father was coming for the first time, I could ask the other family member, like, is there anything that you think that they need to learn in the time that they're coming? And then I'm a third person, so I'm allowed to give some advice and things like that maybe couldn't, yeah, they don't hear from their partner. Yeah. So it's really beautiful work. I think I'd love to see it in every school, because also if you had that program that goes into then the 3 to 6, 6 to 12, 12 to 18, you have all of the families on board. They understand the Montessori approach, and it's in a way easier from 0 to 3 to let the child do as they please. And then when you get to the 3 to 6 and 6 to 12-year-olds, when they're starting to learn letters and numbers and things like that, then it's really hard for the adult to step back and say, but what if they don't learn that? You know, it's like you learn the trust in that first 0 to 3 years. And that you will keep using right through all the 4 planes of development, right through to 24 years old. Oh, wait, I love this question too. Do you see the one in the chat about the safe bond? Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, take it.
Shall I read it out?
Yeah.
It says, what about the safe bond as a fundament for exploration you're describing? Also, could you talk a bit about adaptation to external caretaking, which is many times very stressful for the child? And so, yes, I love that in Montessori we have attachment. We have a very important attachment with the parents. So you have the bond with the person who's feeding the baby, and if there's a father, or there's families look many different ways, and you have grandparents also in your homes, sometimes in India, right, as well, where you have this very close attachment so that the child feels secure for them to go off and do the exploration. So some people think, well, Montessori is not about attachment parenting and things, and we're not attachment parenting, but we do have a very strong base of attachment of that first 6 weeks of what we call symbiosis, where we're learning about the child and the child's learning about us, and we're learning about their rhythms, and we're using those points of references and having a regular, predictable rhythm to our day so that the child knows, I've been fed, I play a little bit, and then I go to sleep. I feed, I play, and then I go to sleep. So they're learning about our rhythms and how we are, and that very strong attachment, and then they're safe to explore. I love thinking, once I heard an analogy of a flower, and we're like the center of the flower as the family, and then the child can go off and just do a little exploration and come back. And that could be like crawling to the other side of the room and coming back. And then you drop them to school, and then they come back, and then they go out to university, and then they come back, you know. So we're always this like super strong base, and I think it's such a beautiful analogy for a Montessori family or a Montessori adult, that we are that safe bond where they can talk to us, because when they come to us with their problems, they've learned that we're a safe person that they can talk to. We're not going to judge them. We're also not going to tell them what to do, but we're there to help them to find the answers, or to help them to take responsibility for something that they did wrong, that they're finding it hard, you know, we're the anchor. So actually that's a really important part of then, you know, handing over the caretaking to another party. I think what I see with families is that you need to feel really happy with the choice of the extra care you're getting, and then the child will feel that as well. So it can be really important for you to come and meet Amukta. Say you were going to be the caretaker, and you show your love for that person that's going to be looking after them, and your child is going to pick that up. So you can confidently say, you know, hand over the child, or the child can crawl in or walk in, and you can say, I'm going to see you after book time or whatever it is, and then you can leave very calmly. I think it would be nice if, in some ways, in Montessori spaces, sometimes we gave, particularly with younger families, the chance for us to sit on the side with the baby and wait till the baby crawled away from us instead of handing them over and having to leave. But I can also understand that sometimes it just prolongs the separation. So I respect everyone's different ways of saying goodbye in different caring environments. But if I had a choice, I would at least wait till the baby crawled away and felt safe.
Yeah. And that separation anxiety doesn't come in there, but they to get attached to the caretaker, and then slowly you leave, you know,
Exactly.
replacing one and the other.
Yes.
Would you like to talk about, you know, siblings, when toddlers have siblings, and what happens to one or the other?
Yeah, of course.
Yes.
Because it can happen that, you know, you choose 2 years old, your child's going to be 2 and you're having another baby, and it's almost like the hardest age because they're actually very much in the ego part of their brain. They're not thinking about other people. And one of the books I read when I was expecting, my children are 16 months apart, and it was called Siblings Without Rivalry by Faber and Maslich. And it's not a Montessori book, but it really helped me it is very aligned with Montessori. And the opening chapter talks about your, imagine that you had a partner and your partner says, I love you so much that I'm going to get another partner. And that partner is going to take your old bed and your old clothes. And, you know, you can imagine that you could have some jealousy coming up and that you would feel like, but I was the most important thing. And now I'm like having to share myself. And actually, when you get another child in the family, then it's actually an opportunity for your love to grow. And, you know, you can practice lighting candles saying, oh, you know, this was me before I met your papa, and then my love grew to him, and then you were born and my love grew to them, and then my love's going to grow to the baby. And you can see that love just actually grows, because sometimes we have doubts as well, like how could I possibly love anything as much as this first child? So there's a lot of that going on that is important. So when the child is having a hard time, it's the same kind of thing as that child who was super frustrated and angry. We can also understand that they're not trying to give us a hard time, even though we're tired and probably looking after a baby and all those things. They're feeling left out, or they're having some need that they're missing the time that they used to spend with you. And I love that in this same symbiotic period, we can be very clear about the help that we get. So, for example, instead of someone coming in to play with the toddler while we do something else, you could actually get them to do the jobs around the house so that you have time to spend with the toddler, you know, so they get special time. So I think I would always make special time with the child. I love making sure that, you know, you're not necessarily holding the baby when they come in for the first time, that they actually can discover the baby and they get used to each other. And you're showing each other that symbiotic period when becomes, for the first 6 weeks of the second baby, how we get to know each other as a family, and how it's going to feel a little bit uncertain for all of us in the first 6 weeks. By the end of the first 6 weeks, you'll start to see like, now I see how it looks like to have a family of 4 or a family of 5 as the family grows, and those kind of things. And if the child is rough with the young child, it's very similar. We need to be very clear, like we need to be gentle with the baby. We can translate for the baby. Again, the baby's crying. He's saying he doesn't like that when we touch. He really likes gentle hands, gentle hands. So I think gentle hands, telling them what we want them to be doing, getting them involved. Some babies, toddlers love to be helpful. And so they're like, can you get the diaper for me? Can you put this into the bin? Yeah, we're going to prepare this now. And yeah, not rushing through it. It's such a beautiful period when you look back. You don't want to rush those times together.
Even bathing times it can be together, so they
Yeah,
feel good about it.
absolutely.
Or feeding, any of the daily kind of activities that they could do together. No?
Yeah. Oh, someone's asked if I could repeat the title of the book, please. It was Siblings Without Rivalry by Faber and Maslich. Yeah, they're currently pregnant with my second one and need to explain it to my toddler. I love having books, yeah, also picture books about becoming a family, like what it might involve, that the baby's going to cry and, you know, those kind of things. Try and find ones that represent your family as much as possible, your culture. I mean, unfortunately, a lot of books about getting a baby, I think the one that I could find when this was 24 years ago was a zebra having a baby. You're like, no, I don't want a zebra. I want a real person. Like, why is it still hard to find good Montessori style books which are realistic and that the child can relate to?
Yeah.
Yeah, super interesting.
Shall we look at the, kind of at home, what could parents do to create a kind of a lovely environment for welcoming the baby? And
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think I just go back to before I knew Montessori, because that was, I found out when Oliver was 18 months old. And I remember reading all the magazines and all the things that I needed to set up the nursery and everything like that. And then I heard about Montessori and I'm like, oh, I wish I had have known this, because actually you do not need much at all. You know, you need it to look warm. You want to make it cozy, but you actually have a mattress on the floor for the child to sleep. In the living area, a low mirror that's like horizontal and with a movement mat next to it. an area where you can change, but it could be simply a change mat that you can put on the floor and then put away as well, so it doesn't have to take a lot of space. A place to feed, so an adult chair in the space where the baby sleeps is useful for night feeds and things like that, and you have a little table where you can have the things that you'll need during the night while you're feeding. And then as the child grows, you know, you can add like, well, a little shelf where they can crawl to get their activities off. You can start, if you already have space, you can do that when the baby's small, because they learn that's where their little things belong, and the little mobiles. And then it's really fun once they start crawling, because you can have like a basket of balls that, you know, they can crawl after the balls, or we have those little walker wagons. It's not something that you stick the child in, but something that they can pull up on and they can move to push. They can cruise along those low shelves. I mean, the number of children that have come to our classroom, and the Montessori shelves are just the right height for a child to cruise along. And they take their first steps because there's just a little gap between that shelf and another shelf, and they all of a sudden they're like, oh, I wasn't holding on to anything, and they took a step. It's really beautiful. So that prepared environment where it's simple, beautiful, but just what they need, we're curating and making very intentional spaces. I think that's like the most important thing to think about. I love how in Montessori spaces you have artwork down low for the baby also to appreciate, or maybe a photo of the family nearby their sleeping place, so that that's their point of reference as they fall asleep. Yeah. And every room of the home, you can think, what does my child need in this space? And so a toddler, for example, can have a low hook so they can hang up their own towel, and a laundry basket so that they learn, when I get undressed for my bath, I just put my clothes into the laundry basket. And this has worked for my children. I never had to say, where's the laundry? You know, they learned, you build on this. It's so natural. You know, it doesn't have to be that you're fighting with children, but you're building the skills that lay the foundation for later years as well.
Yeah. Yeah, the rest of the house also, in a sense, people think they have to make it, child friendly. So one is, of course, the laundry basket, and also the living area. Is it a possibility to make it so that you are not harassed, you know? Otherwise, you're worried about this and that, and then you're always preventing the child or saying no to the child.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, having a nice space that they can explore without having to say no. If they start pulling at plants, is there a way you can make the plants, you know, child-friendly for a time? It might mean covering up the soil with some plastic or something for now, but that means that over time they can learn how to care for plants. Or, yeah, if you've got a fragile cabinet, it's better to maybe remove that to a room that you can lock and then bring it back when the child has more ability to, you know, control their movements and things like that as well. It could be fun to talk about the program that we're going to do together and the overview of the 6 weeks. Yes. I've got in front of me like the planning, and I don't know, I'm really excited to kind of explore this with you. Should we do that now?
Yeah, let's do that.
Because basically the program has been designed to meet twice a week for an hour and a half each session over 6 weeks. And so we get lots of time together, which means that we have time to go into the pedagogy. So we'll have a couple of sessions. I'm going to try not to make it 2 lectures, actually more interactive, that you'll have exercises to think about and some reading and things like that as well. But we'll cover things like the absorbent mind and the sensitive periods and human tendencies and setting limits. And then in the first week, we also cover a session on the home environment because it's so important. And then week 2 is the second part of the pedagogy, along with a session on practical life, because that is such an important part of the Montessori approach. And then week 3, we get into observation. We have a whole session on observation because if we can learn observation in the birth to 3, this will really make your life as an educator or parent. Yeah, it's the thing that makes you a Montessori adult, I think, because you learn not to judge anything. You learn to see with fresh eyes and to see the child for who they are today and in this moment, not who they were or who you expect them to be, but really to remain in that moment. And the second session that week's on language development, which is really exciting because we'll cover kind of how to present language activities, which is kind of fun, but also just the importance of apps. We add language material as well, so how we speak with our children is really important too. And then in the 4th week, we get into sleeping, eating, and toileting, which I think a lot of families have a lot of questions about, but also in the school environment, and a session on movement. Fine motor movement, gross motor movement, And then in week 5, there's social and emotional development and a session on art, craft, and music. And then the final week is more social and emotional development because that's just such a big topic. And the final session is about the preparation of the adult. And then what's next, I guess, as well, probably like leading into the 3 to 6. So I hope that people are really excited to join us.
I'm excited to be part of the program. And we're starting on 17th March on a Tuesday. Tuesday and Wednesday are the classes for each week. And we go on for 6 weeks, I think. We're so happy that Simone has offered this program in India and hope more people will take advantage of this.
And we should mention as well. Yeah, we should mention as well that it's online because some people, when I mentioned I was doing a course for India, they thought I was coming to visit you, which might happen one day. But this time it's online, so actually anyone can join us if they want, and the recordings will be available if you can't join live, which will be nice too, and you get a certificate, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, there's one more question that came in.
Yeah. Any other questions from the community? Yeah.
It says, what age do you think is to get to external caretaking and how long a day per week? Which is a really interesting question. So in our Montessori training, our trainer said that in the birth to 3 years, there's no need for external caretaking if you have able to look after them in the home environment. So some people say, oh, you need to do it for their social development, all those kind of things. You will socialize the baby, the toddler has enough social needs met in the home environment. So it's not necessary. But of course, there's working parents and people who need to have some space and things like that to do what they need to do. And so, you can, you go with what works for the family, and when you can find a caretaker that is the right match for your family. When I worked in a nursery and there were children 5 days a week there from 8 till 6, they were there longer than I was. I think they found it hard. That was a long time away from their family. They were obviously in the best of care. It was a Montessori nursery and they were very lucky to be there. But you could see those children were tired and they didn't, it's a relaxing space, but maybe not quite relaxing enough. Like you can be at home without anybody else around you. It was busy space. But there's no judgment. It's, look, half days would be great. If you had a choice, I would do half days with a child, and 5 days a week probably is okay from 18 months. And yeah, babies, if they need to go to long daycare, they need to go to long daycare, and they'll be in the best care that they can possibly be in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. For the workshop series, we're not calling it a course.
Okay.
For the workshop series that Simone is doing, we have a coupon code which we will type in called birth 23. So and if you use that coupon code, they'll get a 10% discount.
Ah, that's great.
Yeah.
Shall I type it in the chat? Is it like this? Birth number 2, 3. Maybe like this. Oops. It wants to do a capital. I don't know if you need a capital or not.
2, 3. Yeah, this one. See that now?
Oh, yes, perfect. Yes, it's already in the chat now.
Yeah. So that is special for people who are here today.
Ah, that's fun.
And there was a lot of enthusiasm. I don't know how many people are there, but there was a lot of enthusiasm and people were asking many questions about the workshop series. So the timings, shall I make it clear? Maybe the timings for the workshop are from 1:30 to 3 o'clock. That's India Standard Time.
And for me, that's in the morning. It will be 8 o'clock, I think. Oh, maybe not. Maybe 9 o'clock. No, I can't remember. It's 4 hours difference. And then we have a time change in the middle as well. So anyway, check your world clock because of it.
India time doesn't change. So it's 1:30 to India time.
Exactly. No, I think that's 9 o'clock Europe time. I think that's 9 o'clock Europe time. And it'll be 10 o'clock for the second part. Mm-hmm.
And in
Malaysia. Oh, they'll be on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. Yeah.
Tuesdays and Wednesdays. Any other questions from the community you want to put up? Otherwise, we have one more question we can ask, which I have for Simone.
Oh, I don't see any others come in, so let's hear your question.
Yeah,
And actually, can I ask you a question after that?
sure. Yeah. So looking at it, you've been to Australia, Netherlands, etc. You worked in different countries. Also, conferences you've gone to different countries. Would you say that children are the same everywhere? Parents, parents often ask us, and we keep telling them something or the other. But from your point of view,
I would agree with the universal child that Dr.
yes,
Montessori talked about. It's
correct.
fascinating that what I think is important is that Montessori should be adapted culturally so that your house will not look like my house because I live in the Netherlands, you live in India. That will be different. But the child themselves, the way that they develop, their needs, their human needs, by any child in any country, they need to be able to move, to communicate, to have repetition, concentration, perfection. We are all part. And I think that's why, even though Dr. Montessori's work was developed in the early 1900s, her first school opened in 1907, it still applies today because we have the same human needs. Yes, the world looks different and we are helping our children to adapt to the changing environment, but their needs are actually the same. It's fascinating.
Yes,
And parents have the same questions around the world. I'm always surprised. I'm like, oh, it's the same. Yes, we also have children who push and bite and things in this culture, and they have that in India. Okay, that's really interesting. It's very beautiful, but no child is the same. They have the same needs, but everyone will present uniquely, which makes our work so interesting. It never gets boring because you always have a different child in front of you. And even the child that you knew yesterday will be a different child today.
yeah,
So such beautiful work.
yes,
And my question for you was about Montessori's work in India, honestly,
yeah,
because you've been in Montessori since the 70s in India, and that's something that I think people might be curious about as well.
yeah. So I think Montessori was here from 1939 for about 10 years, on and off. At that time, it was a subcontinent. Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh were all part of the Indian subcontinent. And she spent time here. And she learned also while she was introduced Montessori approach to India and to the continent. A lot of international interest also came in at that time because it was just after during the Second World War and after. So, and India also was in the throes of freedom struggle, looking out for new education programs, ways of learning, and wanted to bring it into part of the Indian culture. She was in touch with Tagore and Gandhi and spoke about how a new education can be possible for the new India. And I think it became popular. Most of our courses here were from for 3 to 6. So, and there were hundreds of people attending those courses. We see
Amazing.
pictures, yeah, we see pictures of that in under thatch huts. They were taking classes, and she spoke Italian, of course, and Mario, her son, translated. And every evening, the notes, whatever she spoke, was uh, typed out at that time. As she spoke, it was written down and then typed out and given to the students the next day. So those notes were valuable, and that's how Montessori idea spread in India. She also did the elementary course in India, and because she was interned in a hill station in Kodaikanal, and that's where my mentor also went to study there under her. And she developed the elementary education here, and the idea of cosmic education, I think, was developed, built up here. She
Yeah.
had the idea earlier, even when she started the CASA. Soon those 3-year-olds and the 5-year-olds became the 7-year-olds, and she was thinking about what next, even when the CASA was there in Italy. But the elementary program developed here. And I heard also that what she observed here, she incorporated into the Montessori approach also. As some of, even like lying on the floor, she saw mother and children being close together here. And that she felt was so important. Whereas in the West, they tried to and detach themselves from the child as soon as possible. But here the attachment sometimes goes to 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 an extreme that they're there with us forever. But that idea, I think, helped her. Even in the elementary education program, the idea of timelines, she saw cable lines being laid in the city in Chennai, in Madras, what was then Madras. And then she said, why not have a timeline like this? So she had somebody on a cycle holding the cable and pulling it, and the timeline emerged, from there on a spool. So I think some of those ideas, whatever she observed, wherever she was, I think she incorporated into her work. And
Absolutely. Because she wrote The Absorbent Mind after she'd been in India. And yeah, it's quite interesting. I think a lot of her 0 to 3 ideas have developed then, even though she wasn't responsible for the 0 to 3 training that developed, that was by her contemporaries. A lot of her thoughts, were definitely incorporated.
Mm. And also the elementary, I think, being exposed to Indian philosophy, etc., because she was there in the Theosophical Society, that also gave her this notion of, which she already had, but gave it, I think, maybe a form to create a kind of a universal cosmic education curriculum for the elementary level.
Yeah. That's exciting. So beautiful.
And now, after all these years, I think in India, the 3 to 6 program is the most popular because that's where she started. Elementary is becoming popular, and with some of the courses being held in many cities in India. And Schoolscape also, we have an elementary course. And the birth to 3 is very, very slowly emerging. And we hope your workshop will encourage that. The adolescent also, there are a few programs with some of the trainings happening here that will also emerge. So I feel from birth to adulthood, we may hopefully cover all that in India, and the opportunity will be there for that.
Well, I'm excited to be a small part of that. And we look forward to getting started on the 17th of March.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you so much for inviting me to do this.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you, Simone, for being here and also doing the workshop series for us.
Of course. Of course.
Yeah. And hopefully we'll have an exciting time together.
Absolutely.
With all the students too.
Because we'll have fun as well. Like, as you can see, I have wisdom, but I also like to enjoy. So let's have fun together.
Yes. Thank you.
Have a beautiful day, everyone.
The coupon is there and people can, I don't know, we're trying to type in something. The link. Okay. The link to the website and to the course, to the workshop.
Okay. And for those who might see the recording, you can find that in your link in bio as well.
Yeah. Thank you, Simone, for being here.
Thank you.
Soon after you're coming back from your holiday.
Perfect.
Yeah. Yeah. This come up?
Yes, there's the link. Perfect. It says bit.ly/schoolscape03. And I love actually why your organization is called Schoolscape, because it's to escape the traditional school.
Yes. Yeah. Because that's how we pronounce it in many of the Indian languages. It says school. There's an E before the S. So school is escape. So escape from school. So we give it as a joke, not really, but it's also a fact. Yeah.
Yes. All right. Well, goodbye, everyone. Have a beautiful day.
Yes. Have a beautiful evening.
Bye, everyone.